Welcome legends and heli-heads and lovers of all things rotors to this three-part video series where we take a look at the different anti-aliasing settings that are now available to you in DCS World version 2.9. Big congratulations to Eagle Dynamics, to their developers and testers for ensuring that in this version and undoubtedly versions going forward that you have such a wide variation of choice to choose for your anti-aliasing settings that ultimately every single one of us should be able to get the very best experience we possibly can, whether you've got a monstrous system or whether you've got a potato. It matters not. There's a solution for everybody. You just got to know which one is the right one for you, and only you can do that. Quick look at the options screen. Now, you'll be pleased to know perhaps that I'm not going to go line by line and validate and ratify why I've chosen what I've chosen. Everyone's mileage will vary. There's no right and wrong settings out there. These are mine. By all means, press pause and take a deeper dive. All I wanted to talk to you about was the resolution that I'm running at, which is 5120 by 1440, a big 49-inch ultra-wide screen. What you're seeing in this video is only 2560 by 1440, the center part that is cropped of the video. So when we're looking at the frames per second, please bear in mind that the machine is pushing 5120 by 1440. Right, let's dive in. So this is part 2 of the 3-part video series for DCS version 2.9, looking at the anti-aliasing settings. You can see part 1 in the top right hand corner now. What we're seeing here, obviously, the 4 quadrants, and there they are, and we're seeing the 4 different options that are available to us under DLSS as an upscaling method, i.e. deep learning super sampling. And we're utilising deep learning anti-aliasing, as you saw in the options screen, as our medium, if you like, as our main anti-aliasing method. Now look, here's the thing, bottom line up front, ultra performance is going to give you the highest frames per second, as you can see here, but with the lowest anti-aliasing quality. And you will see anti-aliasing artifacts, particularly at distance. With the quality setting, you're going to get the lowest frames per second, but you're going to get the best, or the best quality under DLSS. So, as a conclusion then, it's a fair assessment to say the majority of advice out there on YouTube with regards to DLSS settings being that balance is the best one to go for, I would absolutely agree with. There is very little difference between balanced and quality, except balance will give you that few more frames per second more. We need to bear in mind, particularly while you're looking at this video, that if you're going to look for anti-aliasing artifacts in the video, in this video, then you're going to find that quite difficult, unless of course you use ultra performance and quality boxes 1 and 4 as a comparator. Purely and simply because we need to remember that this section, each one of these quadrants are 2560 by 1440, captured in the center of a play area which is 5120 by 1440. So you know, it's a small chunk that's been caught, the middle chunk, and then we've reduced that down even further so that we can create a quadrant. So so anti-aliasing settings or anti-aliasing artifacts are going to be difficult to see. You will see them in ultra performance, particularly around the clouds, where you won't see it on the quality. So for example, on quality it'll be perfectly fine. Ultra performance you might see some artifacts, some shimmering, and some very clear poor anti-aliasing. On what we're seeing here, of course, all of these frames per second are quite high, and there's a couple of things to mention about that. First of all of these you can see are stuttering worse than Gareth Gates on his first night at the Palladium, or wherever it was, I don't know. Sorry to anyone who's got a speech impediment, but there you go. There is a lot of stuttering going on here, and what's not captured on this video is of course the screen tearing that I was experiencing when I recorded the replay. You're going to get screen tearing if the frames per second is above the refresh rate of the monitor. Now my monitor 5120 by 1440 is 120 Hertz and options as a derivative of that, so I can go to 60 for example. I can also go to 100, but I can go to 60. I fly in DCS World at 60 frames per second and most other flight sims, and the reasons for that are in the top right hand corner now. Mainly because it gives me a regular frame time, where you're seeing all these frame times fluctuate. It gives me a regular frame time. It gives me a regular frames per second, which never drops beneath the refresh rate, i.e. 60. And obviously I use VSync with that. And of course, if I'm recording, it means that the recording is going to be the best it can be, because as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, there's no other recording software at the minute that enables you to record more than 60 frames per second. And 60 frames per second is a very balanced medium that's going to give most people the best quality. And of course, on YouTube, the maximum you're going to get is 60 frames per second. So all of these here really are not very good examples. It's showing you what the frames per second differentials are between each of the DLSS settings, but actually, really, you don't really want it more than your refresh rate of your monitor. Whether you use VSync and G-Sync or G-Sync or any other sync technology, you pretty much want to keep your frames per second the same as your refresh rate of your monitor. In my experience, VSync is going to get you the best possible solution for DCS World when it comes to smoothness and clarity and so on. Now, poor old Greta Thunberg out there is doing an absolute nut at the minute, because of course if you have a look at the power settings for each of these, we're absolutely burning down, you know, a hectare of Amazon rainforest every 5 seconds. We're pulling a lot of power out through the system. That's costing us money and so on. And of course, the other benefit of capping our frames per second by the use of VSync in the NVIDIA control panel, if you're an NVIDIA user, is that we're going to use significantly less of the GPU power, and we're going to have some overhead there. And we're certainly not going to be burning, you know, 220 odd watts constantly, or even higher with the 4080. Another thing to bear in mind, and this is something that's overlooked, and I haven't seen or heard anyone mention anything about it, and that is that, look, DLSS is a fantastic anti-aliasing technology. There is no question about that. And it's really going to give you bags of frames per second. But if you're running a 13900K and a 4080 or other systems of that sort of power, why on earth would you use DLSS? DLSS is designed so that a variation of us with different types of systems are empowered to be able to fine-tune to get the best frames per second. And if, like me, that best frames per second is the same as your refresh rate of your monitor, why on earth search for anything faster? You only need it as fast as your monitor. Ramp up your quality settings. Don't use DLSS. That said, DLSS is a fantastic addition to DCS World. And for many, many pilots out there, many people out there, it will really ramp up their game and make sure that you know, it's as immersive as possible.